Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we are going to talk about Season 1 of Doctor Who, and by that I mean the original first season from 1963 and 1964 with William Hartnell as the first Doctor. This is a good, solid season for a first season for a TV show like Doctor Who. I think the stories vary in quality a little bit, but it's a very solid season, does a good job introducing you to the concepts of the show, and I think it's nice going back and rewatching it. I think it holds up pretty well. Let's talk about An Unearthly Child. That first episode, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. The performances from William Hartnell, Carol Ann Ford, William Russell, and Jacqueline are fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Everybody's doing their parts really well. I like the unearthly nature of Susan, which I wish had stayed more in the show, but she does it really well with this first episode. William Hartnell is on fire in that. And I mean, he's only in the second half of the story. When he walks on screen, he is just phenomenal for the rest of the story. And then watching William and Jackie as they're playing Ian and Barbara, as they're slowly trying to figure out what's up with this unusual student they have and why she lives in a junkyard and where did she disappear to and everything going on. It's interesting how this very first episode, part one of this story, peels away like layers on an onion to where you don't really know what's going on and you slowly learn more and more. Now, most people watching this story, this isn't your entry into Doctor Who. More than likely, you have entered Doctor Who at some other point in the show's history, whether it be further along in Classic Who or with Modern Who or somewhere else. So you're going back to watch this story with foreknowledge of what the show is about. But it's interesting how, if you have never seen this show before, which of course when it originally aired, no one would have, how it's drawing you in, setting things up, and then slowly peeling away the mystery of what's going on, with the culmination of them ending up in the past. That is really well done. Now, episodes 2, 3, and 4 dip a bit. They're not bad by any means, but they don't compare to that first episode. And they do drag a little bit, to be fair. I could see someone who only watches the modern series and they go back to watch Classic Who and they try to do it chronologically from episode 1. I could see them struggling a little bit here, going, wow, Classic Who is a little slower paced. Which it is. But 60s Who is also slower paced than 70s and 80s Who. It's like not all of Classic Who is paced the way Season 1 of Doctor Who is. You know, it wasn't just in modern times where the pacing just suddenly got faster. You know, all throughout Classic Doctor Who's run, 26 years, the pacing style was changing. 70s Who and 80s Who also feel different not only from each other, but from 60s Who, because it ran 26 years. Television evolved in that time. So 60s Who definitely has its own unique, slower style of pacing. And I could see someone with episodes 2, 3, and 4 struggling a bit, because it does kind of drone on a bit. Now, technically, you could just watch the first episode and skip to the Daleks, much like David Whitaker's novel does, where it has an alternate version of the first episode, which is actually quite different from the televised version, and then it just leads into the Daleks. And that's a great read. David Whitaker's version of the Daleks is fantastic. I recommend reading it to everyone. But you don't have to watch those 3 episodes if you don't want to. You can watch the first episode of Doctor Who and Unearthly Child, skip the next 3, and move on to the Daleks if you want. I recommend watching them, but it's not... There is a dip in quality, much like with the Space Museum in Season 2. It's fine, but it's nowhere near as good. Then you have the Daleks. Results will vary with the Daleks. Now, most of you, if you watch my channel regularly, you know I struggle with the Daleks at 7 parts. I think the key to watching the Daleks and getting the most out of it, and I have a goal to do this sometime this year myself, is to watch the 7 episodes in multiple sittings. Do not watch all of the Daleks at once. If you watch all 7 parts at once, you are going to be bored out of your mind. Oh, I know, believe me. I recommend the colorized version of the Daleks. If you're going to watch it just in one sitting and you want like a shorter version of it, The colorized version right here, fantastic. I like it. I don't agree with all of the decisions made in it. The incidental music's hit or miss. But the pacing is much better, and I actually like it. If you just want to get the general idea of it, some of the updated effects are nice. The colorization, I actually think I prefer it in blur in black and white personally. The colorization looks nice. The people who did it did a really good job. Although it does go for a more Technicolor 60s look than a genuine recolored look. Like, it never tries to trick you into thinking it was filmed in color. Like, say, some of the recolored Pertwee episodes try to do, where they try to make it look like the way it was originally shot. This takes a more 60s Technicolor approach, where you can definitely tell it wasn't originally in color, which looks great. The people who worked on it did a fantastic job with the colorization. My hat's off to them. It's more the editing of the colorized version I like. I like it condensed down like that. Blasphemy, I know. Heresy. But I enjoy that. So there is that option. Also, if you want to watch the original versions as they were originally intended, take breaks. Watch like parts 1 and 2. Take a break. I'd watch it over a 3 or 4 day period, honestly. At least 3 days. At least 3 days to get through the 7 parts. Taking breaks, honestly, between each episode. Go do something else. Come back to it. Shoot a review if you do that kind of thing. And then I think it will work much better, especially having a familiar villain like the Daleks in there. Learning more about their origins. Learning about the Thals. I really think you can get a lot of enjoyment out of the Daleks. And then you have The Edge of Destruction. Not a big fan of this one. It's not long. It's 2 parts. Takes place entirely in the Tardis. It does a good job of keeping you on your seat as to what's going on. It's a very mysterious episode, trying to get make you think, wait, what's going on? Is somebody a traitor? Is somebody not what they seem? It does a really good job with that. I love the attention Barbara gets in this, as it is Barbara who figures out what's going on. I love that. I think that's very progressive for the time. I absolutely adore that. And then the ending of this story is very phenomenal. I'm not a big fan of The Edge of Destruction, but I love the ending. I love Barbara being the one who figures it out, and I love that that's really the first time you see the Doctor softening up. You see his soft side, where even he admits, oh, I'm just a kind of a, crotchety old man sometimes. I forget what he says, but he kind of admits it. And then when he goes to apologize to Barbara, and then at the end, even offering his arm as they go to check out the snow leading into Marco Polo. I love that ending a lot, where you really start to see the compassionate side of the Doctor for the first time. Marco Polo is, of course, a little tricky to judge, as it is completely missing. Somebody's got to have some of it out there. They made so many copies of Marco Polo, like, 9 copies, 12 copies. There's a lot of copies of Marco Polo out there. Or at least at one point out there. So somebody has got to have at least part of Marco Polo in a collection somewhere, whether they know it or not. Part of it's got to be out there. I firmly believe that. But Marco Polo is a 7-parter completely missing. I have never seen it or read it. I have seen the 30-minute cut down of it, which I remember enjoying. It's been a while since I've watched that. But I do remember enjoying it. But of course, you're condensing a 7-part story of 20 to 25 minutes a piece, each episode, down to 30 minutes. There's a lot going to get lost there. I really want to read the novelization of that. I don't know if I have that. I don't know, because the Flyattractor has sent me a lot of novels, and I've actually got them boxed up right here in this closet, but they're literally the bottom box, and that's not fun to dig down to. So I don't know if I have that or not. I'll make a deal. If someone sends me the novelization, I'll read it. How about that? That's my deal. If I get it in the mail, I'll read it. I may actually have it, but I don't know if I ever have it. Maybe he knows if he sent it or not. He probably doesn't remember if he sent it or not. But the 30-minute cut down I really liked. And it is a popular story with the people who have read it or seen the reconstruction of it or heard the audio of it. I do know Marco Polo is held in pretty high esteem by the Classic Who fandom. So that's a good thing. Keys of Marinus, I really enjoy. I love the Keys of Marinus. It is a 6-parter, but each episode feels like it's its own thing. It's kind of like a miniature version of the Key to Time season, whereas what's going on with collecting the key segments feels like a seasonal arc, and each story has their own thing, because each episode has a very drastic feel to it. You have episode 1, which is setting everything up with them on the island, finding out the water is acid, finding out about the keys, being sent on their mission, so to speak, kind of like what we get in the Key to Time. And then the second episode is them in the City of Illusions, basically, which is really cool. The third one is where they're in the abandoned jungle in the ruins of, I can't remember if it's a temple or what it is, and you find out the jungle itself is kind of encroaching in. That's a good one. Then you have the one in the ice, the kind of cold Arctic-like setting, which is really fun. Then you have the murder mystery where Ian is accused of murder, and it takes on this kind of Perry Mason thing, which I love because I love me some Perry Mason. And then episode 6 kind of wraps up episode 5 and then gets us back to what was going on in episode 1 and resolves all of that. It's a nice, thorough adventure with some good performances. The Keys of Marinus is one of my favorite episodes of the season. Then we move into the Aztecs, which is a very famous historical. A little overrated for me, but still very good. Again, I love the attention Barbara gets in this. Jacqueline is putting in a fantastic performance. I love how her and the doctor are butting heads in this. I adore that scene when he's like, "You can't change history. Not one line. You can't do it. Believe me. I know. I forget exactly how that plays out, but I love that scene. My favorite scene of the story. Phenomenal scene. And good performances from both of them, because you can understand the doctor's point of view and her point of view. Of course, we also have the sacrifice guy in it. You guys know I like the sacrifice guy. It's the same actor who plays Ash in Colony in Space. And I'm curious, does he have any other Doctor Who appearances or just those two? I know someone will know. But he's great in both. And I really like him as the sacrifice guy. I never remember his name. I just call him the sacrifice guy. That's his name for me. He's really good in this. I like the sets. The sets look really, really good in this. It comes off as very much a teleplay, almost like a theatrical performance we're seeing on TV, like a lot of the First Doctor's era can be, actually. And I really enjoy that. And then, of course, the Doctor accidentally getting engaged is hilarious. I really like the Aztecs. A little overrated for me, as I prefer, say, Reign of Terror over it, whereas I know most people prefer Aztecs over that. But still really good. And then we have the Sensorites, which I think a lot of people considered the low point of the season. I remember doing that one time. I think I did a video like, you know, if you had to, I think it was one of the It's Armageddons, which, I haven't done one of those in a while, where if you had to, like, give up one story from each season, I should redo that one again sometime. Which one would you give up? And the Sensorites kept showing up on the list. It just kept showing. I remember when I was doing, like, my reaction to that video, I kept going, I was like, oh, look, it's my buddy, the Sensorites again. This was before I'd seen the Sensorites. So obviously I had this impression that the Sensorites might not be considered very good. And I was like, oh, it's our buddies, the Sensorites again. Because it kept showing up for season 1. So this must not be a very well-regarded story. And I'm kind of surprised nobody sent a copy of it then. It was later, I think when I pointed this out in another video, that no one had sent a copy. I ended up getting 2 copies. 2 of you sent copies. And I have one of them right down here. And one of the other ones I keep meaning to give to a friend of mine, actually. And then the couple of times I finally managed to get a hold and hang out with her, I forgot about it. As a matter of fact, I sent her a text about that the other day saying, I have Doctor Who stuff to give you, because I have 2 copies of the TV movie Blu-ray. I want to give one to her as well. She's also a big Doctor Who fan. She's my friend Alexa, the one who has the fantastic theory about the 10th planet that I've talked about before. Did a whole video about it. She has a wonderful fan theory about the 10th planet that I love and totally headcanon to me. The Sensorites I liked on first viewing. I found it underrated. I very much enjoyed it. It didn't really drag for me. I thought it was paced well. I liked the makeup and design of the Sensorites, and I thought the performances were really good. I like how the first 2 episodes basically take place on the ship and how the rest of it moves down to the planet. Kind of almost a 2-4 situation like Bob Holmes liked to do. I kind of like that a lot with the setting changes. Now, I don't know how it'll hold up on rewatch, having seen it, because part of what was the driving force of it for me was wondering what was going to happen next. I was constantly engaged with, I wonder what comes next, and that kept making me want to watch the story. Now that I've seen it, it is one of those I think on rewatch may drag a little. I'm not sure. I'm looking forward to finding out what I think when I watch it for the second time. And then we have the Reign of Terror, which you guys know I like. Someone did send that recently. It was either Colin or Simon sent that recently, because I got War Machines and Reign of Terror, and I think one of them sent one and the other one sent the other. It's right down here. They sent me the UK version, which I have a region-free player, so that is perfectly fine. And it was nice to give it a rewatch. That's actually about the 3rd time I've seen that one, because it used to actually be on YouTube at one point, if it's still not. I really like The Reign of Terror. It's one of my favorite stories of the season. It's one of the reasons I like historicals, pure historicals. I just enjoyed this. William Hartnell's performance and the way he takes command of the room without overextending himself when someone of higher rank would be in there and when he knows not to push it. He's really good at judging that in this. William Russell gets some great scenes when he's there. I know he's not in a couple episodes. He was on holiday at the time for 2 weeks. But he gets some great scenes in as Susan doesn't really get a lot to do in this one. She's just kind of there, and sometimes when she's there, she's very irksome. But Jacqueline does a really good job as Barbara in this one. I like, again, the sets. The animation for episodes 4 and 5 is very good. I tend to like Planet 55 animations. Of course, there's some issues with the camera work. We know this animation was rushed. There are a couple scenes where the camera cuts are super fast and it doesn't quite work. But the actual style of animation is really good. The way the characters' faces move looks, most of the time, to me, pretty nice. Every now and then, a little not. But the likenesses are really good. Like, you always know which character is speaking. The likenesses, especially for the main cast, look spot on. And I absolutely adore that. And then it's nice, you know, having the surviving episode 6 when you jump back to live action to wrap it up with that. It's just a really good story. And I really like the Reign of Terror. It's a good season. You get a nice mix there from the first episode of setting up the series, then with a historical, then we get introduced to the Daleks, who are so iconic and probably so key to Doctor Who's success. Then we get the mini episode in the TARDIS. Then you get a nice historical with Marco Polo, a future kind of sci-fi epic story with the Keys of Marinus, with each episode kind of being its own thing and having its own feel. Then another historical with the Aztecs, and then another future sci-fi story, and then another historical. It's a great balance of stuff going on in season 1. And I really like it. It's not my favorite Hartnell season, but it is a good one. I think all 3 of the Hartnell seasons are good. I think all of the 60s seasons are good. There's no weak ones, honestly. But this is a solid job of setting up what the show is, with some good writing, some good directing, great performances from the main cast and most of the guest cast. It did a really good job of setting this show up to be a success. So I want to know what you think of Season 1 and these stories that make up Season 1. Comment down below and let's talk about it. And if you want to see me talk about more seasons in this kind of style like we're doing, let me know. I can always start and do more of those. I think it's been a lot of fun to do this one. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. That helps me out, and I certainly appreciate it. I also have a Patreon. If you like what I do and would like to get early access to videos, exclusive videos, outtakes. Oh, are there outtakes and bloopers sometimes? If you ever want to see how often I can mess up one of these, check that out. Access to lots of bloopers and outtakes. Well, sometimes more than others. And just if you just want to support a YouTuber you like, because that does help me keep the bills paid. Most of you know I do have financial goals I'm trying to meet, so I would certainly appreciate that. I also want to give a shout out to a couple of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney and Stephen Crane. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. It's very much appreciated, and my YouTube members as well. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review. I also have a link to my Amazon wishlist down there, and a link to my Amazon UK wishlist down there as well. Most importantly, thank you for watching.